Hello and welcome to the Adventure Games podcast. My name is Shorter Than Bar and I'm your host. So thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Adventure Games podcast. And I am delighted to be joined by Eric and Eric of Short Sleeve Studio, developers of Voodoo Detective. So hello, Eric and Eric.
Hello.
So I don't think this is going to be confusing at all. Two Erics, the one time. But I'm delighted to have you on the podcast because Voodoo Detective has just been released at the time of recording, and it's doing pretty well from what I can see, getting some very good reviews, and people seem to be very excited about that. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. Before we start talking about the game, maybe we could have a brief introduction. So start with the person at the top, Eric Fulton. Would you like to have a brief introduction, say what your role is and what your favorite adventure games are?
Oh, sure. We can call me Green Eric, and maybe Eric
Okay.
Ackerman can be Blue Eric, or I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
Green Eric.
layer of indirection there. So I'm sort of the game's producer, programmer, and then Eric and I co-wrote and co-directed the game. So I sort of did all the hiring and programming, and we wrote and directed it together. And we started in 2019. And yeah, what am
and
my
favorite
game?
adventure
Thinking about
games?
that. Yeah, because I think Monkey Island probably stands in my mind as my favorite, but Monkey Island, King's Quest are the two that I grew up playing, because I was born in '88, so I was maybe a little bit after the heyday of those adventure games, but I had older siblings that played, and so those were the ones I grew up with, like King's Quest 6 and Secret of Monkey Island and Monkey Island 2 and Curse of Monkey Island are probably my four favorites, I think. But I also had, Putt Putt Goes to the Zoo and Freddy Fish, and when I was quite a bit younger.
So you started young. So you played Ron Gilbert's games for young children then.
I did, yeah. He had me from when I was still sucking my thumb. Just
and that's it. What are the good? Have you played those games recently?
It's funny. I was just watching, because we've been reaching out to influencers to see if anyone would be interested in checking out Voodoo Detective as part of the marketing for the game. And one of them I saw had been playing Putt Putt, and I was like, I wonder what that looks like after all these years, because I haven't seen it since I was, I don't know, like very young. And it's a colorful game. It looks like fun still. I don't know if it would be fun for me as an adult, and I wonder what kids would make of it these days. What with all the, you have your iPhone and a million different colorful, exciting games you can play, Fortnite or Among Us or whatever,
or Voodoo Detective,
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. But yeah, that's sort of what I grew up playing.
Cool. Yeah, there's some great games there. I mean, I think like myself, I was born in '86. So I think I didn't have any older siblings, but I think like yourself, I started late, kind of a bit later playing adventure games as I told you before recording. But no, some great games there. And I think we can see with Voodoo Detective, certainly with the screenshots, that it's certainly, it looks amazing, like what we'll talk about now. And but you can definitely see the influences, I think, of LucasArts. But we'll talk more about that shortly.
I was just gonna say we owe a debt we really can't repay. So much influence from all those really great games. These people are legends, and the fact that we got to work with some of them, like Peter McConnell, it was sort of like stepping out of reality and into a dream and meeting like a hero, and very, very cool. Love those games.
Cool. And remind people who Peter McConnell is, if for people.
If you don't know, Peter McConnell is the composer behind Monkey Island, along with Michael Land. He also did Grim Fandango. More recently, he did Psychonauts 2, and he worked on Hearthstone, which is a huge game. yeah, he's been all over the place, and he does the most whimsical, wonderful, hummable tunes you can possibly imagine for video games. I honestly, Grim Fandango is one of my top favorite game soundtracks for sure.
Mm,
I mean, yeah, there's some JRPGs I love, like Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy, or like the Koji Kondo games. But as far as like Western composers, I mean, he's just world class. He's
yeah,
very
absolutely.
good.
Yeah.
And
Cool. Well,
all
we shall talk. Yep. Sorry, go
you
ahead.
can-
This is the other Eric.
oh yeah, I was just gonna say you can stream all his other stuff online, all of the soundtracks if you want to check out Peter's stuff.
And you
Well,
should.
I shall add a link to the show notes and in the description.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Well, Green Eric, don't know that. Eric Fulton. Now the other Eric, Blue Eric, Eric Ackerman. What if you could introduce yourself and say what your role is and what your favorite adventure games are?
Gladly. I am the co-writer and co-director. I have none of the computing skills that Eric does, but I am very much in awe of his programming prowess. But so I'm completely on the creative side, but writer, co-director, which is very fun. I get to imagine things all day. And I would say my favorite adventure games, the Monkey Island series, definitely, as anyone who plays Voodoo Detective will instantly recognize. Curse of Monkey Island, especially, was one that I got attached to. And there's a game called Cartoon Summer Resort that was a free game on CartoonNetwork.com ages ago. When I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to play video games except the free ones I would find online while my parents were out. Cartoon event resort. That it wasn't an adventure game. It wasn't exactly point and click, but it was. You went around solving puzzles, and there was some great mystery at the center of it all. And that game, I just still have such fond memories of it. It was the best.
Cool.
If anybody can find it, let me know.
What the name is? Cartoon.
Cartoon Summer Resort.
So okay, I mean, I shall look for it now. Now I'm
Yeah,
very curious.
Yeah, I think you can. It was a Flash game, and I think Flash has been disabled or gone defunct in some way or other. But yeah, if any of you listeners out there have Cartoon Summer Resort, let me know because I want to play it.
Cool. Okay. Well, I shall look for it. And again, if any listeners does know a link, please send it our way, or please send it to Short Sleeve Studio and Eric Ackerman.
That's me.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, it's funny that some people, to rebel, they take drugs, they go out drinking. You play video games.
Right. Yeah.
So- and now you're making them.
Yeah. So parents beware what you don't let your children do.
Yeah, if you don't let your kids play video games, it could end up being video game developers.
Yeah.
So
Dangerous.
yeah, maybe I'll do that with my kids. Maybe I won't let them play video games. Hopefully they can become video game developers. But
Long con.
exactly. Well, thank you for that. So and I'm curious, so did you guys what I'd like to ask people is which came first, the game studio or the game? Did you guys know each other for before 2019? Were you friends before? Did you meet each other in 2019? So how did you get together to create the studio and then the game?
You want should we alternate who answers maybe?
Yeah, sure. So Eric, Green Eric, since if you want to answer that.
So I can we met in college, so long before the game was conceived of. We were in the same dorm room at Santa Clara University and quickly became friends there. And after we graduated from school, I think we were doing kind of a weekly exchange of writing. So I would send a short story his way, he'd send something my way, and we'd give criticism and feedback, positive or negative, whatever. And one of those short stories was Voodoo Detective. And I think that was around 2017. And it just kind of like all the other writing we'd been doing, kind of sat in a Google Drive. And then I worked as a programmer since I graduated, bouncing from tech company to tech company and never really quite settling. So, because I'm a misfit, I'm a rebel, you know?
Not a rebel.
And I was working at my last job, and I was just kind of thinking, well, I'm not happy here, and I don't really want to go and bounce to another company because that hasn't been helpful in the past, helping me find what I want to do. So maybe I should take a leap of faith and do something different, just take my courage in both hands and try something new. And I did. I mean, I met up with Eric. I think it was our friend's wedding. Our friend was getting married, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking of or probably before that, actually. I was thinking of making a video game, and he was very enthusiastic. He said, Eric, yes, you should do this. You should quit your job immediately and go make a video game.
Good advice.
That good advice, or
Well, so I didn't quit my job immediately. I had saved up a bunch of time off because I just never take time off. And I took it all off at once and was like, hey, Eric, you want to work on writing the story together in these 2 weeks and see how it goes? We did, and it went really well. And so at the end of the 2 weeks, I stormed into my office and said, hey, everyone, I quit. I stood on my desk. See you all in hell. And then I left, and I didn't actually do that.
okay, I was wondering. I was like, wow.
I didn't really do that. I'm friends with my manager still. I mean, it was
okay. I mean,
congenial party. I'm
that's-
just totally joking.
that's usually how things go with my experience, but I'm glad actually that you're still friends with your previous manager. You know, I'm happy. But on the other hand, I'd be like, well, I thought the other way only happened in the movies.
No, it didn't happen at all. I made that up. That was a little joke.
Okay, well.
So yeah, after that, it was just full speed ahead on Voodoo Detective. And I guess it's been 2 2 3/4 years or so. I mean, I guess we started in earnest around August of 2019, I think. And so since then, up until May 24th, 2022, we'd been working on the game.
Yeah, well,
And,
it was finally released on 24th of May 2022. So again, congratulations
thank
on the release.
The
And
release of what? Of Voodoo Detective. Everybody go buy it.
indeed, well, I think from what I've been seeing on Twitter, at least quite a few people have been playing it, and on Twitch and that. No, fantastic. Thank you, Eric. And then, well, Blue Eric. So did you quit your job as well, or are you still working? Did you?
A little bit of both.
Are you still friends with your manager, or did you tell him to go to hell, or her to go to hell?
Yeah, you know, I keep in touch with people. I'm well, not nearly as good as that as I should be, but yeah, I'm still friends with people. Anybody I told to go to hell, told it right back to me, so we're even. No, I didn't do that. I was working in television, which is seasonal work for a lot of stuff. So I was kind of bouncing from show to show. And when Eric asked me to join him, I had just finished a show, so I was free at the time, so I didn't need to quit my job. And then for like the first probably, I guess, year of Voodoo Detective, I would hop on a job for a few weeks, and then come back to Voodoo Detective, and then hop on a job for a few weeks and then come back, because that was the way the TV, or that is the way the TV business can go sometimes. But not anymore. Now it's been full steam Voodoo Detective for, I guess, like the last probably year.
Cool.
Yeah, which has been real nice. Very fortunate to have been able to do that, and hopefully forevermore.
Yeah, well, look, hopefully this game will do well enough that you can continue making games. And then to continue, then Blue Eric, I'm going to keep going with this.
Okay.
So you mentioned you work on TV. Do you have any preference now to writing for TV or writing for the game, or are there any differences or any challenges in one that you didn't find in the other, or how did you find working for both?
Yeah.
Are there any similarities that that were able to help you?
They're extremely different. They're similar in that they're writing craft. So getting good at one makes you good at the other to some degree. It's, you know, in television, you write the same conversation. And I only worked at the assistant level. I wasn't a fancy TV writer or anything. But when you write the same conversations over and over again, you're just revising. Whereas in adventure games, you write the same conversations over and over again because of the multiple branches. So that's something that I was afraid of being tedious at first, but it actually turned out to be a pretty good time. I don't know if Eric Green Eric had the same experience as I did, but I've found it to be a lot of fun to I don't know, branch different ways a conversation goes. And I'm somebody who always has a hard time when writing, making up my mind about which way I want a character to go, and I don't necessarily have to worry about that if I can have them go either way, both ways even.
Sure.
In terms of you can give this emotional response or that one, and hey, everybody wins.
Sure. Were there any challenges? Because I've heard Charles Cecil, developer of Broken Sword, speak that he said there are big differences between writing for TV and movies and games, that he considered as writing for games to be more difficult, more challenging because they're interactive and you have to give the player agency. Did you guys find that? Well, again, Blue Eric and then Green Eric, we can go back to you.
Well, there's a lot more to keep track of, I'll say. At least for our experience with Voodoo Detective, just because you have to cover every base and you really have to make sure, well, you never want to be redundant, but you also have to always be clear, which is a tall order for when especially as you get deeper and deeper into the story and have so many more threads to pull. I don't know. It gets hairy sometimes, but it does keep you on your toes, which keeps you from getting bored.
I could imagine.
Yeah, which is something I appreciate.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Well, going back to Green Eric, what can you tell us? Oh, sorry, we're gonna.
I was just gonna say I
Sorry.
can't really speak to the difficulty of writing for TV versus I mean my experience in writing for linear stories is what I exchanged with Eric and maybe a screenwriting class I had in college. But I will say, just from experience on the adventure game, the non-deterministic branching of dialogue, like if you really it gets to be kind of complicated because, and I think this is something you see in other games like in Telltale games or games where you can, a great example, Skyrim. There'll be some NPC that's vital to the quest that you're currently working on, and you can bash them over the head until they fall over, but they're going to get back up because they're too important to let die. And so that's how some people handle that kind of branching of decisions. And granted, this is an adventure game. You can't go around killing people. But if we were to add in a whole bunch of different, branching decisions that had huge implications for the story, then it becomes very complicated. Because imagine all the binary decisions that you have, and it is like an exponential growth kind of thing if you have a lot of them that just do this or this, and this has this outcome, and then those two decisions have this or this outcome. It can get very big, like a family tree. So and in fact there were some things we ended up cutting from the game. Like there was this thing called the Hammer of Woe that you used to be able to grab from the cemetery, and it would have allowed you to, what was it, kill people? I don't know. At some point we had some pretty wild, like back when we were doing Blue Sky.
Go through a wall, I think, with it.
Yeah, get through a wall. That's what it was. Although we did talk about having like a weapon in the game that could take out characters. That was early on in our Blue Sky brainstorming sessions, but it became apparent pretty quickly that if you do have these kinds of decisions, and a lot of them, then the amount of logic and effort involved in really thoroughly exploring those paths it becomes untenable for a small team, I think.
Mm.
So we wanted to focus on giving the player satisfying decisions. And honestly, some of my favorite jokes in the game are the choices you have. Like you'll witness. Well, I don't want to give any of it away, but there's a lot of fun decisions you can make, and just with what you say. I
Cool.
lost track of what I was just talking about. But yeah,
No,
it becomes
it's
complicated is the crux of what I was trying to.
yeah. No, there was another game that was released a few years ago. I don't know if you've heard of it, called Clam Man, which is a comedy as well. And I think it was mainly one guy who made it. And now he kind of like poked fun at the choices, like in Telltale games as well. That there are two choices about which hot dog stand to go to, I think. And the main character said, "Oh, I know this is going to be a super important decision that will affect the rest of this game. Maybe he'll remember that or something." It's a lot funnier than what I just said. But yeah, I imagine it would make things a lot more complex, for a small team. But yeah, so I suppose we should probably talk more about the game itself. So again, without spoilers, I was wondering if you guys could talk about, so what's the story, what's the setup, so who is Voodoo Detective? So I suppose Green Eric again, because I asked Blue Eric 2 questions last time. So Green Eric, if you wanted to set us up, and then other Eric, if you wanted to jump in.
Okay, yeah, sure. So the story surrounds a man named Voodoo Detective who's just moved to this island, and he's sort of lamenting that decision. He's down on his luck. He hasn't had a client, and he's not too taken with the atmosphere of the island because it's become, I mean, it's this place that has a rich voodoo culture, but it's been overrun by tourists and Western, like the Disneys and the Starbuckses of our world have kind of, and not to cast any shade on those companies, I'm sure they're great and we'd love them. But yeah, he's not too taken with it. So he's sitting at his desk writing a personal ad because he's also lonely, when in walks his first client, and it's this woman who's lost her memory. And so his first case is to find out what happened to this woman and unravel the mystery that's surrounding her amnesia. And she explains that she had this, the last thing she remembers is this dream she had where an old man and this crossroads had given her this pendant. And so that's your very first clue, is like, what does this pendant have to do with this woman's amnesia, and where does it lead? And so from that point, you begin your investigation. You make use of your hoodoo, which is like it's like a tradition within voodoo, the religion. It's kind of like folk magic and root work, and so you make use of those skills to, and your wit to solve puzzles and unravel the mystery.
Cool. Well, I'm certainly intrigued. It's it's got, because especially in a really paradise type location, but I really like how it's changed. How it's become very touristy. Because even over here in Europe, you could say maybe there are places in Spain or Portugal that are kind of like paradise places, but then you go there, and it's full of both English and Irish people and very few locals. And not that anything wrong, I'm Irish myself. But if you go to a place, you might want to know about the local culture. But I can see how that's happening. So thank you for that, Eric. I suppose Blue Eric, is there anything that you would like to add to the game as co-writer? And I suppose I could talk about maybe some of the inspirations that for the game as well. And what type of game is it? Is it a comedy? Is it a satire? Is it more serious, a detective thriller? What type of game can we expect, and what were some of the inspirations?
Well, it's definitely a comedy. Some satire certainly made its way into there, like just what we were talking about with the tourism culture overrunning the locals. So we definitely poke fun at that, and the big corporations that often can be responsible for the package and resale of certain cultures. And influence-wise, aside from all the wonderful adventure games, Eric and I really were diving into a lot of film noir and detective novels. Raymond Chandler, probably principally. And there was a movie. What was it, Eric? The Long Goodbye. I think, yeah, The Long Goodbye, that was based off a Raymond Chandler novel that, according to Green Eric, or I think that was one of the first things we talked about, because that was the Raymond Chandler's one of his go-to detectives, Philip Marlowe. He was investigating a mystery that had him spend some time at the beach. So that was a principal influence. And yeah, just a number of those Raymond Chandler books, The Big Sleep, Farewell My Lovely, some Dashiell Hammett as well, The Thin Man. And then just Eric had a pile of film noir films. He would recommend a number of those to me. What were some other ones, Eric?
Well, one that's not really an authentic. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just saying The Big Heat was another one.
Oh yeah. Some that weren't authentic noirs as well. Like Steve Martin did this movie called Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, which is kind of a send off, right?
Send
Yeah.
off.
It was a send off of noir films, and it takes a bunch of clips directly from those films and kind of pokes fun at all the stereotypes and the funny tropes that they're not funny, but he makes it funny. Like Chinatown, Casablanca was a big influence, especially for our trailer. We went back to that quite a lot. Double Indemnity was a big one. And like Eric said, yeah, the Raymond Chandler stories and especially The Long Goodbye was influential. And Grim Fandango, game like that. Yeah, we have a lot of debts we owe to all these inspirations.
So, I mean, I love all of that. Again, I love detective novels. I've seen some of those movies. I haven't read the books yet. I keep meaning to. So then you've mentioned it's a comedy as well. So with the detective aspect, then I suppose how did you fit the detective aspect with the comedy? Is that was there comedy with the detective gameplay, or was that more serious then as well? How did you guys both fit those two together?
I think.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You're asking.
Yeah. No, that's Green Eric, you can go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say that I think anyone who knows Eric or me would say that we both have kind of similar dry sense of humor, and the way these detectives talk in the films, it's like very deadpan, and these people are like flawed, and they're kind of hard-edged deadpan people, and it's like kind of a perfect vehicle if you're doing dry humor, having someone who speaks in that manner, giving kind of silly lines, works pretty well.
Yeah.
Was there more to that question? I'm sorry.
No, I think that I think you answered that they're deadpan. So the detective, then he is more similar to Philip Marlowe or Dashiell Hammett, then I take it.
Yeah. Sorry, you asked if detective, how it was suited to comedy. Yeah, so I think that's sort of our angle with the comedy coming from him. And then there's stuff that Voodoo Detective himself doesn't say that's also funny. Like there's some a lot of reviews have pointed out the tutorial that starts the game, which is sort of seamlessly blended into the gameplay. It's not something explicit. Has some fourth wall breaking humor as well, and we try not to get too meta with our humor, I think, in general. But there are a few like fourth wall breaking jokes that kind of are a little bit meta, I would say.
Cool. Well, I look forward to it. So I know you talked a little bit about Voodoo Detective and this client. Is there anything else that you can say about any of the characters we might meet? So maybe Blue Eric, again, without any spoilers. Can you talk to us about any of the characters that we meet on this island in this story?
Definitely.
If you're able to. Again, don't want to give any spoilers because I'm still looking forward to playing it.
Yeah, I'll at least say that they were all brilliantly voiced by very talented actors. I guess I won't say all of them, but they were all I don't know if I have all of their names handy. But William Christopher Stevens as Voodoo Detective, Tom Bromhead as Victor Von Toole, Keith Farley as Gordon Crumsford, Mo Daniels as Mary Von Toole. We had some really great people. Amanda Troop as Penny. Penny has been Eric's sister and nephew's favorite character I know. Oh yeah, EK Amati is fantastic. But yeah, the other characters, you know, we've got the very, what's the word, stately Englishman who's very kind and old and frail. You must have him in a detective story. There's the greedy banker, Gordon Crumsford, who is blustery and he was quite a lot of fun, I will say, to write for, going with that pompous language that he had, which you'll have to play Voodoo Detective to hear about. Who else? Who am I missing? Yeah, there's a wonderful, colorful cast of characters.
That's a
Janelle Lynn Randall did Eartha.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
Donah Hillbilly was voiced by Eric Holloway. He has a wonderful voice and did a great job. John Luke Thomas was Theodore Lawton. We could recite the whole cast because they're all actually like
they're all awesome. Donah Hillbilly is a really fun character. Voodoo Detective's brother, who owns the local watering hole and is basically the last holdout of local businesses. So that's nice to go there. And he's quite a talented piano player. So that's a not only character but background that I personally love to spend time at. Just listening to that piano tinkle in the corner doesn't get better than that.
Cool. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a fantastic cast of characters. I suppose leading up to that then, because you also mentioned Peter McConnell did the soundtrack. Well, first of all, how did you guys approach these actors? How did you manage to get these actors to do voices in this game? So did you just put out a casting call, or did you approach them specifically? Because as you just mentioned, they're a fantastic group of actors. So I would probably green Eric again if you wanted to, and then other Eric if you wanted to jump in at any point.
Well, we already mentioned that Peter McConnell was part of the project, but we also had some other LucasArts people involved, and one of them was Dara O'Farrell, who did casting for a lot of Telltale games and a lot of LucasArts games. And so when we were, so initially we weren't going to have voices at all, and as the game continued development, the scope kind of ballooned, and we're like, well, what if we did have voice actors, and what if they were very good voice actors? So I reached out to Dara, and he said, yeah, I'd be willing to do that. It'd be great to do another adventure game. So he put out the casting call, and we got hundreds of auditions, and over 900 auditions, I think, in total. So we went through quite a few. Yeah, it was incredible. And I don't know if that's because the game is, I think it's a mixture of things. I think it's because the game has a lot of story and like opportunity for actual acting versus something like Call of Duty where you're like, or like, yelling or getting shot. So that's very appealing for actors, I would think, because it gives them more opportunity to act. And
absolutely, yes.
It was also at the height of the pandemic. So I don't know if that's good or bad for us, because maybe there was a lot more work because people were, hungry for entertainment, or maybe people were looking for work because of the pandemic. But whatever the case, we got a lot of auditions, and Dara's the one who helped us put that together. And I should say that another person who worked on the project is Julian Kwasniewski. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He's our sound designer, and he also worked on a bunch of LucasArts and Telltale games. And both of them are deeply involved in lots of game development. If you look at their IMDb's or Moby Games, you'll see. But he also did some of the, he did a lot of the sound design, and also editing the sound files, and for a couple sessions, he was also the voice director. So, and Eric and I were also voice directing along the way as well.
Cool. So then about that, how did you mention he was working during the pandemic? So I imagine were all the voice recordings done remotely for the game?
Yes.
Yeah, like everything else. So how do you go about directing these voice actors for your characters then? Because a lot of them, or most of them, are very experienced and very good actors. So how did you direct them probably remotely again to voice a character the way that you wanted them? Do you have any specific way or methods or anything that
You want me to answer, or Blue Eric?
yeah, or Blue Eric, whichever one of you worked on that the most? I guess with Blue Eric.
Well, yeah, we were definitely equals there, but we got very fortunate to work with people who were kind enough to take our direction, I will say. But yeah, we were on Zoom calls. Some people were doing it from their homes, from their living rooms. Other people, there were a few actors who went into studios, but even then, we would phone in a Zoom call, and they'd be in the studio, and we'd be in our living rooms. And yeah, we would just go through line by line, and most of the time, they made our jobs pretty easy. We didn't have to do much. That Will Stevens especially really just locked into the character of Voodoo Detective, which was really cool. But when we did have direction, everybody was very gracious and kind, and they would hear which way we wanted to go with the character. Eric and I had very concrete ideas of how we wanted everyone to go. So I think because of that, we were able to give succinct notes. And I think that's helpful too. Kept the chatter down. And yeah, we just we were just able to go back and forth really well, and being remote didn't really seem to get too much in the way, as far as I can tell. Maybe a couple technical difficulties here and there, and especially some people were international too. But for the most part, it was all rather pleasant.
Oh, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, everybody was just really easy to work with, and I hope I can say the same about us. I'm not sure the studio, who knows what our reputation is amongst these actors, but we had a nice time.
We can be a couple of prima donnas sometime.
Well, it's about to ask then. I think you kind of answered as well. Like, what was it like working during the pandemic and remotely? Did you guys work remotely with each other, or did you guys get together at any point during the pandemic? Do you think it would have been better to work face to face with the actors and with each other if you didn't? But again, Blue Eric, you mentioned that it was all rather pleasant. But I suppose, Green Eric, I know this is weird, but I'm still going with it.
I think if it's a visual podcast, then green and blue are a lot easier.
Yeah, if this is all, if people are listening to this in audio, Green Eric is wearing green and Blue Eric is wearing blue. That's why I'm calling you Green and Blue Eric. You don't actually look green and blue like people in Star Trek.
Yeah.
But
I'm not sad, and Eric's not full of envy. Our clothes. Yeah.
So yeah, how was it working remotely then? Did you guys work remotely with each other, or were you able to get together in person during the pandemic?
Largely we were remote, like, because Eric lives in LA and I live in Bellevue, Washington. So we would have a lot of Google Meet meetings and use Slack and Discord, whatnot. That's largely how we communicated and how we dealt with everything. So I mean, we're both children of the pandemic, I suppose, for this project. Yeah, full stop. That's how it was.
Yeah, and since this is our first game, we don't really have anything to compare it to. So we can't really say, but so far so good.
I forgot, you asked if it was better than in person, and I have to say that it was great, but I think in person would be much better. Was recently watching a GDC talk that was talking about the pyramid of communication, and at the bottom with the least information conveyed was email. You don't get any facial expressions, no voice, no intonation. And then there's voice. You don't have any facial expressions. And then there's zoom, which is 20 frames per second. And apparently there are these micro expressions that people have based on the emotions they're feeling at the time. And you can pick up on it in person. Like maybe you say something offensive to me and I have a little disgruntled flash of expression that you catch on my face in person, but over Zoom, since it's 20 frames per second, you're less likely to catch that. So I think, and especially with Animation Studio, it would have been really nice to be in person so we could, act some of the stuff out. And we did have video, but sometimes a conversation, oh man, it's worth so many emails and it's worth so many videos.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it did work out pretty well.
Yeah. Not to mention when we get to work together and I get to experience and bask in the joy of Green Eric's company.
Likewise.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I can agree. Like I would love to do this podcast, in person. Go over to the States and meet the two of you guys together. And I've loved a few times that I've been able to speak because I traveled to the States a few years ago for a conference and to Canada and to the UK. But yeah, this is hopefully maybe in the future I can travel more. But yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny what you mentioned about Zoom that I could offend you guys 20 times over and I mightn't realize. Hopefully I haven't. But
you'll never know.
I'll never know. Yeah, that's the thing. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to say that I haven't. And yeah, so then you mentioned Peter McConnell of Monkey Island and Fandango and Psychonauts fame. How did you get him involved? How did he get involved then? I don't know if Green Eric, you want to
it's by the way, he's going to be doing, we just found out an interview on BBC Radio 3 about Voodoo Detective soundtrack. So if you're in England and you're interested in, or anywhere that BBC broadcasts, I suppose, you should check that out. It's going to be really cool. Cool. But how did we get in touch with Peter McConnell? Oh, yes, what he said, sometime in July. But as far as getting in touch with Peter, it started out with a really great guy named Peter Chan, actually, who's an artist that worked on Monkey Island and a number of other, so many things. But he's incredibly talented, and he's one of the people I reached out to see if he'd be interested in doing some of our backgrounds, maybe, or yeah, I think it was backgrounds, not character design, or maybe both, because he can do everything. But he lives in Washington too. So I was talking to him and I was like, hey, would you be interested? And he was working on a Netflix show at the time, so he didn't have time, but he was very helpful in connecting us with different artists, like one of our background artists, Soy Che, who's tremendously talented, also located in the Seattle area. He was introduced to us through Peter, and Peter McConnell happened to be one of the other people he introduced us to. So I guess I mentioned that we were still looking for a composer. He said, oh, let me connect you with Peter McConnell. He'll take care of you. And he did. And one thing about Peter we didn't know was that he's also a huge fan of the noir genre. So all we had to do was mention Raymond Chandler or Dashiell Hammett, and then the conversation devolved into just spouting our favorite noirs and talking about the virtues of different shows. And so we had a lot in common there. And I think so it's partly a passion project for him because it's a genre he's fond of, and maybe there's some nostalgia there. I can't speak for him for the adventure game genre because he worked at LucasArts, obviously, and made some really fantastic games. And I guess that's probably why he can probably speak more to what motivated his decision.
Sure, yeah.
Let's get him in here.
Honor. Absolutely. Yeah. Peter, if you're listening, I would love to talk to you as well. And how was it working with him? And again, giving him direction for kind of the music that you wanted. There's this legend who worked on Grim Fandango, Monkey Island, and Psychonauts. So how did you guys work with him? What was he like to work with? I can guess. Yeah, well, Green Eric.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know if Eric wants to field that, but for my part, it was one of the highlights of the game development. It was so much fun. Both Eric and I are huge music I mean, it's like a huge component of both of our existence. I think Eric would agree that it's sine qua non kind of thing. Like it really, it's great. I love music. And Peter is a consummate professional. Like we started out a little rough. It was like, because a lot of games like Hearthstone, for instance, or some of these multi-100-hour AAA games, you don't want music that's catchy and that loops. You want ambient stuff that can go on and you don't get tired of it. But for an adventure game with a lot of story, it was great. And it really made those Monkey Island and Grim Fandango, it was huge. So that's what we wanted. And once we conveyed that to him, we kind of locked in, and we would at the start of every piece, we would send him a document that Eric and I came up with like, here's a song from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like, let's say we're talking about Theodore Lawton. He's a lawyer in our game, and he's kind of a weasel. So Eric came up with this reference from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where there's these weasels, literal weasels, and they have this wonderful theme by Alan Silvestri, I think is his name, the composer.
Yeah.
So we shared that with Peter, and we're like, we want to go for this kind of feeling. And he's like, oh, this is my kind of jam. I can do this. This is perfect for this lawyer guy. And so he came back to us. And I think this is one instance where he literally sent us his first draft, and we're like, yes, that is the direction we want to go. But there were other songs like the Mary's theme. Early on in the process, we wanted to come up with Mary's theme. And he started out based on our suggestion. We gave him, like, here's Chinatown, here's Body Heat, here's some other noir music, and we want to have sort of a sad quality to it because she's lost some of her without divulging too much, she has amnesia and she has kind of a sad backstory. So there's some of that sadness in there, but there's also hope. There's also adventure, maybe a hint of romance, or some of that quality. And so we started out with all these different samples and gradually narrowed in based on the sketches he was sending us back. And I actually we have a blog post up there with links to like 5 different iterations of this particular piece. And you can see Peter, the cogs in his head turning, like, what are they looking for? So like the first one, okay, and we give him feedback saying like, maybe this is a little too melancholy. And then the next iteration, it would be like a little faster paced, but still a little too melancholy, or a little bit of this quality that we're trying to avoid. And so little by little, we'd hone in on what we were looking for. And in every instance, we would always come to something we were all very, very happy with. And like the finished soundtrack is a thing of beauty. It's really, really cool, I think. And I'm not objective at all, but I would say it's like one of my favorite game soundtracks in recent history. And I think I would have said that if I hadn't been involved. It's really this shining spot of goodness in the game that regardless of what you think of any other aspects of the game, and I think the game is fantastic and a lot of people agree.
Yeah.
This soundtrack is really killer. It's super cool. And if you're a fan of Grim Fandango, you're a fan of Peter McConnell's work in other games, you're really gonna love the soundtrack for Voodoo Detective.
And is the soundtrack available separately, or can we just hear it in the game, or do you have any plans to release it?
Right now, it's available in game.
Okay.
But we are going to release the soundtrack, and it will be available at some point. We're going to work with Peter in July on that. So
cool. Oh, well, thank you so much for that. That was a very in-depth answer about what it's like to work, fascinating answer how to work with someone like Peter and, music as well. It's great to hear that you work so close together as well. So thank you for that. So then I suppose I wanted to chat a little bit about the gameplay, what we'd expect. So I suppose other Eric, Blue Eric, what can you tell us about the gameplay? What can we expect in this game, and some of the puzzles that we might encounter? And what are your views on puzzles? Should they be difficult, challenging, or should they be more focused on narrative, or should there be hints for players? What can you tell us about the gameplay in Voodoo Detective? And then maybe the two of you guys can talk about your thoughts on puzzles in general.
Okay, cool. The gameplay, we tried to simplify it as much as possible in terms of the pointing and clicking aspect of it. Got rid of any verbs, as they're sometimes called, like in a lot of point and click games, you'll click on something and have the option of examine or pick up or talk to. Where we tried to simplify it, where just anything you click on, you immediately interact with it the way you ought to. If it's something you can pick up, you pick it up. If it's someone or thing you can talk to, you can talk to it. So we just thought that, yeah, streamline the experience. So that was something important to us that we grew into. I will say at the beginning, we didn't exactly know what we were going to like best, and that was something that we grew into. And basically that's most of the gameplay right there. That kind of covers everything. Another thing in these games that often happens is you take some long walks, which can be beautiful, especially in a game like Voodoo Detective, where the backgrounds are so gorgeous. But when you've been playing for a while, sometimes those long walks can feel a little tedious. So another thing we implemented was a sort of, I guess we've always called it speed walking, but where if you double click or if you hit spacebar, then you can just speed your way through the level, which is nice and hopefully something people appreciate. I know I appreciate it. Since Eric and I have both played through the game dozens of hundreds of times. So we did that. We implemented the same thing with dialogue as well, in case if you ever have to re-listen to a conversation and only want to rehear one sentence, you can skip through a bunch of dialogue. Hopefully you're not skipping through anything that's important. But there are definitely some times when you don't need to hear everything over and over again. So I'm a big fan. Again, something we were hoping would streamline is the ability to skip through both walking and then dialogue as well. Puzzle wise, well, gosh, we had a few, I guess, different approaches to puzzles. Early on, I think Eric really latched on to the idea of, Eric would actually be much better to talk about this because he was the one who really championed the philosophy of, we tried to, Eric, let me hand this over to you.
Okay, Green Eric.
Yeah.
So the philosophy behind our puzzles.
Yeah.
We owe a great debt to the games that came before us, not just from their successes, but from their mistakes. I think anyone who's played some of those Sierra Online games will agree that there are some rough edges that the game could have benefit from some sandpaper. Like you could miss some small item early on in the game, save your game, and then never be able to go back and get it. And because of that, you couldn't beat the game. So we wanted to avoid anything like that. There was from the get-go, there was going to be no puzzles that you couldn't go back and solve. We benefited greatly from Ron Gilbert's blog posts he had about adventure games. He had a blog post, and I can find the link. I can't remember the name of it, but he talks about,
it was 30 years ago as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it's still valid today, because some of these things, like what did he call it, reverse logic puzzles or something, whereby you feel like you're in a cage trying to get out rather than outside the cage trying to get in. Or puzzles.
That's the philosophy I was talking about. Go on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, gotcha. Or there were moon logic was a big thing in those games. So something iconic from Monkey Island 2 is you'd pick up a monkey, and I hope I'm not giving any spoilers away here, but you pick up a monkey and you'd have to use it as a monkey wrench on like a lug nut or something to open up a waterfall, and or open up a valve, sorry. We wanted to not have players solve our puzzles and then afterwards say, well, how in the world would I have thought of that? We wanted them to say, oh, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
We don't want that kind of experience for our players. So we were trying to be cognizant of like really get in the player's head and make sure we were being fair with the hints we gave and with the difficulty of the puzzles. And something else characteristic of those old games is that some of them are very difficult. And I know, especially as a kid, I needed help from either my older siblings, my mom, my parents, or go to game FAQs at the time and say, like, here's the walkthrough, this is what I need to do. And that didn't feel good to me. I know some people do like using walkthroughs, but it for me, it takes me out of the experience. So we have a hint system in Voodoo Detective whereby you can click on Voodoo Detective, he'll tell you what he's thinking and sort of give you a general, he'll keep you on rails, kind of like point you in the direction of what you need to be doing without, it's a gentle guiding hand rather than a fist clamped around you, shoving you in the direction of the answers. So we have a little bit of that. And we also wanted the game, I don't know if I already said this, but like those old games are very difficult. I did just say that, literally just say that. So those games are very
No, but
difficult.
it's true. They were very difficult.
Yeah.
That stuck with me, and we didn't want it to be a game where you get frustrated like that. We wanted story is so important to us. Like the games that I play these days, as I get busier, or as maybe it's just me getting old, but like the shooters or the things that rely on gameplay mechanics where you kill things, or it's like frenetic battlegrounds or whatever. Those don't appeal as much as story-based games to me. And maybe it's because I don't have as much time and they're more digestible. Or maybe it's because I've been there, done that with those other kinds of games. So story was something that was super important to us from the beginning. Something we hold dear in our philosophy of game making. And we didn't want the difficulty of the game to get in the way of enjoying the puzzles, the dialogue, the humor, the music. We wanted the experience to be, challenging, but not frustrating. So those are kind of the guiding philosophies behind the puzzles. We wanted to be, whimsical, challenging, but not frustrating, if at all possible.
Yeah,
and I think
sorry, go ahead.
I think we towed that line pretty, or I don't know if towed the line's the right word. I think we threaded the needle pretty well. We haven't gotten a lot of complaints about Moon Logic or any of that. There are some people who've said what have they said? They've been largely.
I think most of them have said this is the greatest game they ever played. And I think some of them said that the puzzles were brilliant. I think some of them said the game's beautiful. I can't remember anything else, but generally everyone has said that or something like it.
Eric's half joking, but honestly, we've been like overwhelmed with the reviews we've seen, with the tweets. I think one of the first tweets I saw, it kind of just took my breath away, is this guy said that it was immediately one of his favorite adventure games, and I was floored. I was totally not expecting that kind of feedback. Wow. Because you work on this game for years and years, and you show it to your friends, you show it to your family, and for these loyal people in your lives, you expect kind of positive feedback, but then it goes out into the real world and you're like, okay, here comes the real deal, and you get more of the same. It's like, it's
fantastic.
It is fantastic. It's a real honor to be hearing this from people, and we're totally floored with the responses we've gotten.
Yeah, so
go ahead, sir. I was just going to add that, especially in a genre where people are so diehard, and like people who love adventure games really love adventure games. So we don't have a lot of people accidentally playing this game, and we are, being held up against these amazing titles. So I don't know, it's just really great.
Well, congratulations, because it's not easy to get, shall we say, the seal of approval from adventure game fans. What I found is that they can be tough to please sometimes. That, especially with the gameplay with puzzles, you hit the nail on the head there, Eric, as well. That it was challenging but not frustrating. But then there's some people who say, "Oh, the puzzles are too easy." And then other people say, oh, I give up, the puzzles are too difficult, I don't have time. So, but it sounds like you guys, as you mentioned, threaded the needle, that you kind of struck the right balance for most people, I imagine. And yeah, I'm in agreement. I mean, I play games mainly for story, but then again, you need some gameplay to hook you and some challenge as well to keep you thinking. But if it becomes frustrating, then I might go to a walkthrough, or I might just leave it for a while and might not get back to it. So but no, it sounds, I really like everything that I've heard there, genuinely, that because some other times when people have been given the answer, I was like, okay, that's your opinion. You want puzzles to be as difficult as possible, but okay. But no, fantastic. And now I don't want to keep you guys too long, but we have to talk about the graphics. Because, and I know for people listening on audio might be able to see it now, but I really would recommend people to Google watch it on just on the Steam page or on Google, because our main website, because the graphics do look stunning. First of all, for the people on audio, on video as well, who don't see it, how would you guys describe the graphics and the look of the game, and how did you guys come to get that look? And were there any artists involved or anything? So I don't know which one of you would like to take on that question.
Be happy to.
Or
Yeah.
we both can.
Okay.
Which Eric do you like better?
Oh, don't ask me that.
What color do you like better?
I also like green and blue. I mean, yellow is my favorite color. So,
Oh, there you go.
Oh, hey.
Combination.
who answered last?
I think I did. I think I was babbling
Okay.
about.
Okay, so in that case, then blue Eric.
Blue
what
Eric.
what can you tell us about the graphics of the game and the look that you went for, and anyone who worked on the game, like any illustrators or artists?
Yeah, the artists were, as you can see from the art, extremely talented individuals. And we wanted to emulate at the time. Specifically, we really were digging the Xerox era Disney look, for whatever reason, just because we have a lot of fondness from those movies, etc. I know one of my favorite films is the Disney's Robin Hood, where the Robin Hood's a fox. But that's that era of Disney animation has always appealed to us, and I guess wasn't something that we were seeing too much of. So we thought, well, if we're going to make something, let's make it look like something we've been wanting to see. So that was, at least in our character design, that was something we were looking for. And Eric found an amazing artist, Tiana Oreglia, I believe is how you say her last name, who is, again, just look at the characters and you'll see for yourself, but who's a very, very talented individual and helped us bring these characters to life. And she also was somebody who, when we told her the style we were shooting for, she immediately latched onto it. She also, like us, is a fan of the Venture Brothers, which was another influence of ours, that TV show. So yeah, Tiana helped us bring that to life. With the backgrounds, we wanted to, I guess, this was inspired by Monkey Island again. I don't know how many times we can say Monkey Island. But we wanted to go with a almost skewed perspective to give it a bit of a fantastic and whimsical feel. So we were working with an artist, Bruce Bernese, who helped us really develop. I mean, he wanted us to go with the painterly style, which he ran with once he recommended that to us, and helped us develop what ended up just being our signature look, I guess I could say. And then another artist, Josh we had so many wonderful artists working on it, but Bruce and then Josh Haberman kind of were the ones who took the style and ran with it, and then it matriculated from there, if I'm using that word right. And what else can I say about them? Yeah, and then the portraits and animation and was rendered in 4K. And the animation, thanks to Little Blackstone, was the studio we worked with, based out of Toronto. What else can we say about these wonderful people, Eric?
Yeah, like exactly what Eric said. I think Tiana pioneered the style we were looking for. I came across her on Twitter actually, and we had already talked about how we liked the Disney era Xerox era Disney look. And if you just Google that, I don't know what you'll get. If you Google Robin Hood, you might get something that would indicate what we were going for. So kind of the sketchy lines, really kind of, it's beautiful artwork. So I found Tiana on Twitter and I was like, this is it. This is the person that's got to do Voodoo Detective. So she was sort of the lead for pioneering our style. And then Nathan Anderson is someone who worked on a lot of the characters for the game as well. And he's wonderful too. Nick Freeman and Brian McGee were the other two. They did fewer characters, but I think everyone did a fantastic job on our characters. And like Eric said, Bruce is based out of Seattle and he's one of the first people I approached. He's the only one. No. I met two of them in person because Bruce and Soy Che are both in Washington. But I think Josh Haberman, who's from Toronto also, he was introduced to us through Little Blackstone, our animation studio. And once we had him on board, I think he sort of started like the background style that he was going for is exactly what we wanted. So he really did a great job. I mean, just looking at the backgrounds, they're fantastic. It's something
They
we
are
get
genuinely.
a lot of compliments on. Like Donut Hole Billy's is one that we parade around. Like, here, look at our game. Look how beautiful it is. Look at Donut Hole Billy's. It's really breathtaking what he did. And we've mentioned Bruce, we've mentioned Josh, but there's also Sam, who worked on, the mansion. She worked on Ile Francois, and which, I mean, these are places you'll see in the game. I don't want to give away too much
Of course,
here.
yeah. No, I mean the backgrounds look so detailed as well.
Yeah. Her name is Samantha Key. If you're looking for an artist, she's in the UK. We were just lucky. I mean, I was like I don't know if you know how a search engine works, but it sort of starts with some links and then it starts crawling outwards, clicking all the links in every page and searching. That's exactly what I did, but on Twitter. I was like, well, I know that I like these artists and let's see who they follow. And let's see who they follow. Let's see who they follow. And eventually you run into some pretty fantastic, I mean, you run into tons of fantastic artists. Some of them are busy, some of them aren't, but I think, when I saw Tiana, when we saw Josh and Bruce, our eyes popped out and we're like, them, please. I hope they're not busy. It was a pleasure working with them. And then we didn't even mention our UI, which was done by Sarah Ford and Lily Allen, both from the UK. And they worked on several games. I mean, Sarah's done UI for several games and her work is fantastic too. We have a kind of a simplistic UI design. We wanted it to be something you wouldn't need like a tutorial or a briefing to get through. It's something that should be fairly intuitive, hopefully. I hope you're not hearing all these Slack noises. I should have closed this.
No, I don't hear anything.
Okay.
But I don't hear anything on my end. But yeah, no, I mean, everyone who's worked on this game, they're obviously very talented, as you can imagine. Just the background is so detailed. And now you don't see the animations in the screenshots, but you have trailers as well, which I remember seeing. And I'll try and put a trailer up for this episode as well, so people can see. But it really does look fantastic. You can tell a lot of effort has gone into this, and I think we can see the results now. And I'm sure, I think about when you see screenshots, you go, wow, it looks great. But then, it's kind of like, you can only really appreciate it really well when you play the game, I'm sure, because that's what happened to me several times.
Yeah, it really comes to life because there are you can see the screenshots, but another group of people we didn't even mention just now are the FX artists, and like John McFarlane, and he's worked on, you know, The Simpsons, Princess, what was it? Princess and the Frog. He worked on The Iron Giant. He's done all these
Wow.
fantastic films, and he's still working on The Simpsons. But for instance, on Main Street, there's this ocean front, and he drew these beautiful waves coming in, or there are fountains in the game, and playing the game and seeing the screenshots are two different things, because you see like this living environment. So definitely these people, they deserve to have their work seen.
Cool. Well, I look forward to playing it for myself and seeing it for myself. So as we mentioned, the game is out now. Where has the game being released? Where can people find the game if and I'm pretty sure they will want to play it, but where can they buy the game?
Easiest
Yeah.
way to get it, VoodooDetective.com has links to all the stores that sell our game. But if I'm just going to sit here and enumerate them, as I like to do, it's available on Steam, available on Epic, it's available on the iOS App Store, on the Mac OS App Store, so you can buy it on your Apple computers through the
Nice.
native App Store. And it's also available on Google Play Store. And we've gotten a lot of requests for good old games, so that might be something we're going to sell on too.
Okay.
And hopefully, if Nintendo sees fit to grace us with a dev kit, we will be on Switch as well, which would be wonderful. We'd love to be on Switch.
Hopefully, I mean, hopefully GOG and Nintendo will, you know, you can appear there, because I think the game would deserve it. But no, that's great. And if anybody wanted to find out more about you guys or about the game itself, I mean, you mentioned VoodooDetective.com. Presume that's the first place to go. But if you want to find anything more about you guys, do you have any websites or, I don't know, social media that you wanted to mention?
There's a Twitter account at Voodoo Detective if you want to follow the latest of our posts. But we also have a blog that I was writing for a while as the game was in development. And if you're curious to hear in depth more about how the animation was done, how the music was conceived, how the honestly, going back, it's a real trove of historical documentation for the game's development. There are things that both Eric and I didn't even remember having written in the blog. So there's all sorts of fun stuff you can learn about the development process, and you kind of get a sense of our sense of humor before you buy the game. You can read the blog and say, oh, okay, that's what these guys who wrote the game are about. So maybe I'll like the game, and you will like the game. I promise.
Ooh, I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will. Is there, I think that's all the questions that I have. Is there anything else that you guys would like to mention that we haven't touched on, or anything like to say before we go? No, putting you on the spot here, don't mean to, but just anything else that you'd like to mention to people listening or watching, or for anybody else that's or anything else that we haven't touched on?
Have you got anything, Eric?
Yeah, I just would say everybody should play Voodoo Detective by Short Sleeve Studio. And how?
Yeah, no, you got all the links there from Green Eric. So I will put
that statement.
Definitely, I will put the links at least to the website on the show notes and in the description on the YouTube video, so people can easily check out the game as well. So really, no excuse not to get the game. It looks fantastic, and generally looks to be like one of the adventure games of the year. And I don't say this lightly. We'll see it towards the end of the year. But it does look. It's gotten some very good reviews. I know people are pretty excited about it. So I was delighted to have a chance to talk to you guys. And any plans that you can mention for the future? Again, without giving any spoilers, but would you like to give to make this into a series, or do you have any other ideas for something different, or anything you can say about what plans you may have in the future?
Well, I think we both like how, how LucasArts was a huge success, and then they sold to Disney for like billions of dollars. We were thinking maybe doing that. No,
Oh, Disney, if you're listening.
yeah,
Well,
we
not
would
just
love to
them.
make.
Anybody who wants to throw money at us.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
anybody, if you want to throw money at to two Erics.
I think we'd love to. A serious answer is we'd love to make more games, and a lot of that's dependent upon how this game is received. But I think the fondest wish in my heart is to be able to make more because it was the highlight of my professional career, if not life, on this game. It's been a real honor, a privilege working with Eric and all these wonderful people, and having this opportunity is it's like I said, yeah, it's so trite to say this, but it's been like the journey of my life so far. And I know my life's not over, but it felt kind of over when the game released, to be honest. It's such a huge part of my life these past few years. So
Yeah, no, fantastic. And well, to finish off, Blue Eric, is there anything you'd like to add to that to continue?
Me, nothing more than just I second that over and over again. What a great joy this has been, and how happy I am. It's out in the world and people get to play it. And if you like it, tell people so there can be more. Because we'd love to keep on doing this.
And we would as well.
Yeah. And thank you so much for having us, Georgia.
Yeah, thank you guys. I was as I said, I love speaking to game developers, but this is certainly one of the games when it came on my radar. I was hoping to speak to you guys because I'm looking forward to playing it myself and to find out more about it. And I've really enjoyed this. And I really hope to hear from you guys again and to speak to you guys, maybe next time, or see each other at a conference sometime. And I got my fingers crossed that the game will do well, and you can continue to make more games. I think that's what we would all want. That would make the world a better place if the two of you could continue making games.
Thank you very much.
So,
thank you.
So, well, thank you very much, Eric and Eric. It's been an absolute pleasure, an absolute delight speaking to the two of you. And,
likewise.
You've very patiently answered my questions. So yeah, the very best of luck with Voodoo Detective and with whatever else you do in the future. And yeah, we will review the game as soon as we get a chance to play it, and I'm sure we'll keep in touch.
All right, definitely.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
You know where to find us.
So if you like the Adventure Games podcast, then please subscribe, rate, and review. Wherever you listen to podcasts, please leave a review on iTunes if you can, as every review helps, and reviews will help get the word out, especially for adventure game developers who appear on the podcast. Now, you can also follow me on social media. You can follow me on Twitter at AdventGamePod. You can follow me on Facebook at Adventure Games Podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram at Adventure Games Podcast as well. And we're also on Discord at Adventure Games Podcast. So if you are an adventure game developer or adventure game player, you can follow us there. So again, please feel free to retweet and share podcast episodes and the podcast to people who you believe may enjoy it. And you can also find more information about the podcast on www.adventuregamespodcast.com. So until next time, thank you.